This is going to be easily my most exciting recap video ever. It's the second day of the Airthings Masters quarterfinal, and 4 grandmasters will be eliminated. I have included 6 clips from the official show and our live stream to take you through the action. And before we even jump into the games, I just want to say we raised $350,000 today on Hikaru's stream. We are going to try to do one of these charity streams every time Hikaru plays in the Champions Tour, every single tournament he plays in. FIDE, as you can see, got involved on Twitter. There was a lot of traction on social media, so thank you to you if you donated. You're amazing. That scoreboard that you see somewhere here, that will take you through the journey of the day. We begin with Magnus Carlsen and Daniel Dubov, who yesterday split their match. Daniel Dubov begins with a Catalan opening, and I think it already got very tense around move 10, when Magnus made his intentions very clear. He is going to start pushing through on the side of the board with the a-pawn. Rook d1, bishop d6, and now Dubov plays a beautiful move, knight to c4. Sometimes traveling through forbidden territory is possible if the diagonal attacking bishop in the Catalan hits the weak bishop on b7. What ends up happening a little bit later is this knight routes backwards and then jumps forward toward Magnus's king. We get c takes d4, and the knight disregards taking on d4. This knight continues its journey to c6. Queen d7, and look at this bishop to h3, lining up nastiness, pure nastiness here. Knight moves it to discovered attack. Magnus cool as a cucumber, king to h8, because now this move is not a check. So I can actually take your bishop. That was the difference. If I took there with check, you take me, but I take your queen. Now this is not possible. So Magnus sacrifices a rook and jumps his knight into the middle. But after bishop takes d4, he's a clear exchange down. Exchange meaning rook for a knight or a bishop. Daniel Dubov in cruise control here early. But Magnus was not to be stopped. He got Dubov into time trouble. Dubov below 1 minute on the clock, even though every time he makes a move, he gets a 10-second bonus. King to h7, bishop c5. Knight c5, queen f3, and here Magnus Carlsen begins counter-punching. Plays the move d4, opening up the bishop to hit the queen on f3. We get rook d4, queen e8, sidestepping the danger, queen to e3, and queen to c6. Now there's a mate in 1. That's not where the game ends. f3, rook slides over and hits the queen, forcing the queen to go back. Now g6, knight has to go back. Queen to f6, the rook has to go back, right? Every single move that Magnus is playing, despite being down material, is putting Dubov under pressure, but Dubov finds a gorgeous counter shot. Knight to g4. Queen is now guarding the rook, and the knight hits the queen. Queen to g7 slides out of danger, but h5 is coming, hitting the knight. We get the knight going to e3, knight going to b3, the rook is hit. Here, Dubov is like 25 seconds on the clock, all advantage has gone away. Magnus goes for the b2 pawn, he's going in for the kill, and here Dubov just shakes himself awake, like, oh my god, what am I doing? Rook to d7, it's time to go for my own attack on your king. Magnus says, I don't care, bishop c5, threatening bishop takes e3, pinning the queen to the king, defended by the rook, and we get rook to f7 check, king h6, rook to d7. If you take on e3 in this position, there is just a mating net. There's check here and f4, and the king is mated. It doesn't even matter that the queen is lost. So Magnus Carlsen plays queen a1 check, king g2, and takes, and Dubov hunts the king down, and here plays the absolutely beautiful rook takes b7. This bishop is preventing him from moving his f-pawn forward to mate the king, so he takes it, and if you take the queen, we have check here and mate. So in the game, we got rook to f8 in a time trouble, and queen takes e3, and that's it. Magnus Carlsen's king mated out in the open. He had one saving move here, an absolutely beautiful defensive resource. A couple moves back that he missed. The move, queen to h8. Queen all the way back to protect against rook to h7. And now this is still a threat, and the game here is 0-0-0, which means the computer has no idea. The computer's out for a smoke break and just does not want to be involved in the action in the slightest. And so Magnus Carlsen down 1-0 early, as you can see from the scoreboard. In the first round, Wesley So actually defeated MVL to begin his comeback campaign, because he's down 1-0 from the first day, and actually Timur Rajabov struck against Jan Nepomniachtchi as well. The last game that I want to show you, the other game that I want to show you is between Levon Aranyan and Hikaru Nakamura, and Levon goes back to this London opening and gets the game out of theory immediately by playing bishop b5, knight c6, and taking, and then playing knight b3, forcing this trade, and now this. A position which has basically never been reached, which is incredibly strange for London, but essentially the point here is he has two mercenaries on the dark squares, right? Both of these knights can fight for the dark squares. This bishop can fight for the light squares, but if you change on which color complex of the game that you play, that bishop is completely out of the game, and that's exactly what he does. He completely shuts down c5 with the queen and e5 with the queen. Hikaru builds up with f6 to try to play e5, long castle. And here Hikaru had to play e5. He had to play the move e5. It was the only way to begin fighting, and he waited a little bit too long, and now Levon played a really nice move here. Rook e3, long-term, doubling the rooks on this file, and as you will see just a few moves down the line, this rook will go here to hit the bishop and the pawn. The long-term thinking here by Levon, thinking rook e3, and in the future I will slide over, watch what happens. Rook c8, rook e1, king f7, and a beautiful transformation here of the position, knight c5, trading the queens so that this pawn goes here, and the knight can now come here, and the rook can come here, and the rest of the game, Hikaru was a step behind. Rook to a8, anticipating rook to a3, knight to d4 hitting the pawns, e5, and Levon does not take the free loot. Instead, he plays knight to f5, rook d8, and jumps in here. It's more valuable than taking a pawn because he gets his knight to the outpost square on d6. You want to learn more about outposts? I've got a bunch of great posts on my Instagram about chess, one of which is about outposts. Go follow Gothamchess right now. Just pause the video, go, get back, watch the video. And now f4, the critical break in the position you cannot take because the rook gets in. So here Hikaru has to scramble, sacrifice material, and block the rook from entering. But oh my goodness, Levon was gliding. c4, trying to break up the structure in the center. A pawn break to damage Hikaru's structure. c5, locking in the d6 pawn. And the rest was a matter of technique. He pushed his pawns through. He played check, sacrificing a pawn so the king is not in time to stop the pawn. He sacked the pawn to bring the king closer, and he just converts this game like nothing. Beautiful final move. After rook a6, you just promote your rook and the pawns over there breaking through. Glorious first round game from Levon. We all know that I am a fan of Hikaru. I have done a lot of streams with him, but you can't deny that Levon Aronian just played an absolutely outstanding game of chess. And actually, the next game that I'm going to show you is between Daniel Dubov and Magnus Carlsen, and we're gonna jump ahead all the way to round 3, okay? Now, in the second round of action, here were the results. Magnus Carlsen and Dubov drew, okay? So Carlsen now is down 1.5 to half. Wesley So and MVL, they drew, so it's 1.5 to half. The same can be said for the match between Timur Rajabov and Jan Nepomniachtchi. That one was also a draw. But in the second round, Levon Aronian defeated Hikaru. He defeated him again. There was a one-move blunder in there, and he went up 2-0, which meant it was mathematically impossible for Hikaru to come back, and he was eliminated first, and Levon made it into the semifinals. So that should be said. I will even make this official with the slash there. But then this is now where I'm going to show you the first clip of action, the first maybe a little bit of drama of the day before we jump into the game between Dubov and Carlsen. This one is from the official broadcast, something that one of the official commentators said. Let me know your thoughts about it.
A bad loser. He is a loser today. He is out of the tournament. Do you think he's going to do some smashing and slashing of some stuff, David?
Quite possibly, Kaya.
Essentially, what happens here is the commentators make a joke that, Hikaru is a bad loser. He's been, it's said that he's a bad loser. Is he going to break some stuff? And, we were doing this charity stream, right, during all of this happening. So, Hikaru obviously joined the stream with us, and this was his funny response.
Also, you guys, look at me. Look at me. I'm so angry. I'm smashing things. I'm breaking things. Look at me. I'm so angry. Oh my.
And the funny thing about this is, at this point, we had raised $191,000. So it was just kind of interesting to see, Hikaru getting thrown under the bus by the official broadcast, saying that, he's going to break some stuff because he's angry and he got eliminated. But he was having a good time. He spent the rest of the day with us on commentary. People were pretty upset by some of the words of the official broadcast, but that's life, you know. I figured I'd infuse a little bit of drama in there. Let me know if you think what you think about the comments. But we are going to move on to the third round of action. And in the third round, Daniel Dubov once again has the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus has to win this game. If he loses this game, he is eliminated. So, bishop b4, knight d2, and a little bit of a similarity to the first game, but this time Magnus grabs this c4 Catalan pawn, and he does not let go. He's trying to keep the pawn, because long term in these positions, if you win this pawn and you keep it, you are happy and you are probably just winning the game. So we get a4, c6, and Dubov here plays a very natural developing move, just adding a new piece into the game, h4. And then he plays h5, and then a few moves later, he plays the move rook h4. So look, Daniel Dubov is playing the way my 5-year-old students used to play in their academy, because they think that getting the rook into the game from the side of the board is the right way to play. I'm not insulting Daniel Dubov, I'm making a joke. This is some sort of meta. Daniel Dubov, once again, is playing incredibly creative chess. It's not bad, it is interesting, it is exciting. The point is that Magnus is not castling, because he would be castling into a big attack of queen, bishop, rook, and Daniil, meanwhile, is just sliding his king over to g1. It's like he castled his king, but the rook said, h4, and getting into the game like that. Knight to b4, attacking the queen, queen c1, and rook d8, and here Daniil goes, cuts it all down. We get take, rook a7, sliding into, attack the bishop on b7, pinning it, and the bishop see each other. Knight d5, rook g4, attacking the g7 pawn. Magnus again refusing to castle into the attack. Queen c2, but Magnus has some good stuff in this position too. c3, trying to promote a pawn. I mean, he's got 3 on 1. Let's go make a queen. That's where we're going to get our counterplay. Dubov has to drop back and respect the threat and drop his knight back. Bishop b7, queen b7, and here Dubov disregards the attack on the rook by playing the move knight to c5. And I don't know what he missed here, attacking the queen, but Magnus Carlsen can just take, and c6. And here, what Magnus has is after take, it looks like Dubov, despite being knight down, is going to get in and win the rook. But Magnus has queen b6. And you can't just go here, because even if you win my rook, I'm mating you. I think that's maybe what he missed. Queen b6 attacking the f2 pawn, and Dubov is dead lost. And what ends up happening here is he has to block. King to e7. Dubov says, okay, well, I mean, I gotta do something. Let me just go attack the queen, bring in the queen. Magnus cannot go back or this way because the rook will chop you down. So Dubov starts hunting Magnus's king. Come to me. Oh yeah, I got the bear trap. I'm ready to go. I got the sharp knife. We're gonna chop this house down. Rook to d6, queen e7, and queen d4. Where is this king going? King g5, f3. Wait a second. Whoa, who's winning? Who's winning? The threat is queen to g4. So Magnus plays f5 and he has to lose the knight. So he starts bringing the rook, that poor rook. But queen f4 check, king f6, and queen takes f5 mate. The same fate that he suffered yesterday when Daniil invaded his king's position. If the color's reversed, if you missed the recap, go check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Daniel Dubov wins 2.5 to half. And he gets the overall 1.5, and Magnus Carlsen, in stunning fashion, is the next person eliminated from the Airthings Masters. That is not something that I thought that I would be saying here. Absolutely not something that I thought that I would be saying. Wow, and once again, I have a reaction for you from the official broadcast. This one will go mute on, but Magnus obviously not happy when this took place. You can see here that, he's tense, he's looking at the position. Daniil also laser focused. And then after f takes g4, he moved his rook and he realized that queen f4 check, king f6 is coming. You see the reaction coming from Magnus here, and the emphatic laptop slam, closing his laptop shut. Earlier in the day, he was seen, visibly shaking his head, and Magnus actually, after this, took to Twitter to express his frustration, and basically said that he feels like he's in a slump. And we cheer for Magnus. I mean, there is no chess without a healthy and happy and powerful world champion. But hey, hats off to Daniil, who just played his absolute heart out today. Credit to him, and he moves on. He's the second semifinalist. The next game that I have for you is actually from the 4th round. We're now going to start expediting this because let's add a few scores. So in the 3rd round, So was up 2-1, and Nepo and Rajabov was also 2-1. Okay. Sorry, it was Rajabov 2-1 over Nepo. Rajabov is up 2-1. The game now in front of you is a 100-move game played between Wesley So and MVL, okay? This was crazy. This was their 4th game. This was round 4, and in the 4th round, obviously, if you look at the standings, Wesley So is up 2-1. So Wesley has to draw to force a playoff. If MVL wins this game, if MVL wins, it's 2-2, which means that today's match is a draw, and yesterday's match he won. So MVL is trying to beat Wesley in this game. This is move 30. The game went on for another 70 moves, because MVL is down 2 pawns, but is hunting down Wesley's king over here on the open territory. And Wesley, after a trade a little bit later in the game of rooks, blundered his g5 pawn, because after this, right? And then as the endgame went on, what did MVL start doing? MVL starts pushing his queenside pawns. Watch, he starts pushing his queenside pawns, and he starts hunting down Wesley's queenside pawns, and he wins the kingside pawn by getting the queen all the way around. Now it's queen 3, and even though the queen and the bishop can get in over here, the king will run out and escape, and there is no checkmate. The game keeps moving. The pawns get hunted down. It's now 2-1. MVL, if he wins this game, will be the next person to qualify. Pushing the queen and the pawns, and he gets this endgame. Opposite colored bishops, 2 passed pawns. Is it winning? Wesley brings the king back, wins a tempo on the bishop, slides the king back, and runs. He runs to stop the pawns. He slides the king back, and in this position, what Wesley wants is to sack the bishop for 2 pawns. Doesn't matter if you lose the bishop, because white is not winning with a king and a bishop. He then uses the f-pawn as a decoy, but MVL finds a trick. He can let Wesley promote a queen, but promote one of his own. What is happening? What is happening? And basically what happens, somehow in all of this, Wesley's king stays safe. Wesley's king stays safe, and the players end up running the king down to the other side of the board. The king starts running back, they do a dance, and they end up repeating moves, trading the queens, and the bishop is sacrificed. Oh my goodness, 104 moves played, but it is Wesley So now up 2.5, 1.5, and winning the match today. So it is 1-1, and we will reset the score because they have to play the Blitz playoff. So the overall score is 1-1, and it's time for the Blitz. The final game of the day in Rapid Chess is the game between Timur Rajabov and Jan Nepomniachtchi. This game was the 4th rapid game, and basically remember, Nepo is down a game, so Nepo has to win. It is a King's Indian out of the gate, okay? It is a King's Indian out of the gate with the 2 bishops set up by white. I really like this one, and watch the position Rajabov gets. Look at Rajabov. Look at him. He's flying down the board here. He's moving. He's mobilizing. He's attacking, chipping away. And at some point in this game, white had the strangest position I had ever seen. I have never seen every major piece of an army adjacent to each other like this. Have you ever seen that? That is easily the weirdest thing I've ever seen, for it to be one giant clump like this. Meanwhile, Rajabov is just basically hunting Nepo down. Remember, Nepo has to win this game. There is almost no way for him to do that. He now picks up a rook, jumps his knight into the middle. A little bit later, there was a simplification of pieces, and what do we have? We have an endgame where Nepo is up 1 pawn, but the nature of such endgames with the opposite colored bishops make it extremely difficult for a player to win, because how are you going to hunt the pawns down? And for a long time, he was struggling to do that. He was making no progress. He put his pawn all the way up. It marched all the way through, isolating this pawn as a weakness. Now you want your knight to end up on one of these 3 squares. If the knight could somehow win this pawn, you would be winning. But Rajabov up to the task, not letting Nepo get any closer, not letting him make any sort of useful pawn break, not letting him make any sort of advancement in the position to his benefit. Wait, what? Nani? Uh-oh, 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 here he comes. Wait a second. But I don't understand. Bishop b6, where's the breakthrough? How you getting in? How you getting in? You can't move any pawns. Everything that black has is protected. You can't break through at all. I'm just gonna go here for the rest of the game. And Nepo shows the answer. Bishop to e2. And the bishop will enter through a6, through c8, through e6, forcing the king away from the f7 square, and that's exactly what happened. And Rajabov resigned. He cannot move his bishop because he loses the pawn. He cannot move his king because king e7, f6, f7, and Jan Nepomniachtchi wins. It is now 1-1 in their match as well. Unbelievable. And it is time for the Blitz. Now, I cannot possibly stuff so many Blitz games into one. The format is 5-minute and 3-second bonus in the Blitz. They each get a game with white and with black. We will begin with the MVL Wesley So game. We're going to jump into this endgame. This was a Berlin. It's rook, bishop, and 6 pawns for Wesley. This is their first Blitz game. Rook, knight, and 6 pawns. And if you look at an endgame like this, what is important in an endgame? Material, which in this case is equal. Piece activity. And here, this rook is dominant. This knight is better than this bishop. And the pawn structure. This is what we call a 4-on-3. But these pawns are doubled. They are not active. Whereas these pawns are 3-on-2. Taught you that yesterday. And watch what he does. He trades the pieces on f5, doubles his own pawns, but has f4 and breaks through. He picks up h6, and Wesley So, to his credit, starts breaking through on that side. Look at this. Gets both pawns. Now he's got the a pawn too, and actually he was holding until the very end. When this move put an end to his chances, f7, rook e8 check, rook back to e1, and that's it. The king walks to e7. There is no check. The rook covers, and the pawn is promoting. A brilliant technique converting the 3-on-2 into a pass pawn, and MVL wins the first game of the Blitz. He's now up 1-0. Incredible. The first game of the Blitz between Nepo and Rajabov, Nepo started fighting quickly. Rajabov did not, right here, Rajabov can play bishop e2, he can castle, he's chilling, but instead he starts to fight with Nepo. He starts to mess with Nepo a little bit. Let me get this knight out because his pawn's a little bit. Nepo says, all right, go ahead, take. Oh, okay, yeah, you can take my pawn. What about your development though? You're really gonna castle into my queen and my bishop staring at your king? He says, no, I'm good. And Nepo says, yeah, good luck. Now you're never gonna castle again. Look at this move. Queen h4, threatening vision here. Threatening rook takes pawn, and you can't take because of the pin. Queen takes d4, and you can't take because of the pin. Rajabov has to play king f1. Here come the rooks. Here come Nepo's rooks. He's on the way. Queen h5, pinning the pawn. The threat is now rook takes bishop. Queen to d5, going for a queen trade. No queen trade for Nepo. Nepo slides back. Take the pawn, I don't care. I don't care if I'm down 2 pawns. Rook takes h2. Queen b5. Queen e7. Well, what do you think this is a joke, Timur? c5. Chopping the pawns away at the king. g6, just so the king always has a little bit of breathing room, and these rooks don't take this pawn. Rook g2, rook g2, rook d8. We get dc5, check. King has to slide back. Rook b8. Look at this. Bishop guards the rook, hits the queen. Pawn is coming down. Queen c4, and Nepo is on the way. He does not save his bishop, instead going for queen h4, threatening queen h1, and all sorts of bad stuff. King e1 attacks the rook, but the rook slides out of danger. The queen's in. They're coming in from both sides. How do all empires collapse? Right? Weakness from outside and weakness from within. Queen g1, queen takes f2, king d1. Nepo resigned, Rajabov resigned after queen takes f2 because it's mate. And Jan Nepomniachtchi wins with the black pieces, the first Blitz game. So Nepo is up 1-0. And Timur is on the verge of elimination. And MVL in his match is also up 1-0, which moves us now to the second Blitz game. Wesley So has to win. Timur Rajabov has to win. This one was insane. This one I cannot even... I can't even, skip the opening, because on the 5th move, we already got our first bit of excitement, and we got h4. h4, of course. And now h5. And this game was crazy, because here, queen a4 happened, And you think, well, this queen's trying to just, you know, put some pressure. No, the queen's trying to go here, team up with the rook, and just mate on h7. Okay, the queen's going transatlantic flight to h7. So we get e5, bishop a3, rook e8. MVL sacrifices a pawn in this game and gets this position from the opening. Wesley So's king is stuck in the middle, but he's up a pawn. And watch what Wesley does. He reroutes the queen. He just brings the queen to the other side of the board. He's ready. Rook e5 is an amazing move, anticipating queen h4 and rook h5, which would x-ray you all the way back to your rook. So Wesley says, get this rook out of my face. MVL plays rook a5 to hit the bishop, but also maintain this. Get that rook out of my face. f5, and now blocking the rook's access. If gf5, this bishop is just lined up straight away. So we're gonna get to the bishop using the pin with the queen. So he sacrifices the rook. He's desperate, he's gotta sacrifice the rook. Keep in mind, his king cannot escape MVL because of the bishop on b4. And Wesley doesn't even take the rook. He goes here, because now the queen's vision is blocked. That's the only reason he hadn't been playing that move. And he just now trades, damages the structure, and that's it. He brings in the rook, he brings in the queen. Look at that move. I mean, look at that move. Look at that move. Bishop f8. And if you take it, I take my, look at that move. Wesley wins a game without ever moving his king. Have you ever seen that? The king just literally chilled on e1 for the entire game. And Wesley So wins. It's 1-1. We will go to an Armageddon game. But first, we've got this game with Nepo. Yeah, we got this game with Nepo. Notice what Timur does in the opening. He plays an opening known as the Hippo. Now, I'm just going to tell you guys, this is the craziest game of chess you've ever seen. Let's go. He begins to attack because he has to win. He can't not win. But we could eat d5, rook g8, simplification, and then right here was one of the most beautiful tactics I have ever seen. Nepo played e takes d6 and said, I'm good. My rook is open. My knight is active. My bishop is hunting. My queen is looking down this way. And Timur Rajabov said, bam, bishop to e3, queen, bam, you cannot take me because rook takes g2 is check, protected by the bishop, and when the rook moves, I will win your queen. So we get d7, check, knight d7. Then a bunch of pieces fly off the board. A bunch of pieces. What is the count? One guy has a queen and 2 horses. A guy's got 2 rooks and a horsey and a bishop. They each have 4 pawns, but rook e4 is the problem. Now we get queen to g7. The queen holds both knights. h5, knight to h6 to try to get into f7. You had knight f2, but he chooses not to do it. King b8, and look at this. Timur has activated the knight. This is bad news. Nepo sacrifices a pawn to damage his pawn structure, plays knight e6, and hangs the move knight to f3 check. Pawn takes, rook comes back to e6. So now you've got 2 rooks and the bishop. If this pawn is lost, which it will be momentarily, then we will come down this side of the board with the pawns, and that is exactly what happens. The pawn goes down, the h-pawn comes forward, rook b6, Timur solidifies, and watch. Just brings in the rook. Rook d5, hitting the queen and the knight. Queen has to go to f8, just push the pawn. The queen can't take the pawn because he's going to lose the knight. Knight e7, he gives him a check, brings the rook behind the pawn, and that's it. The trade, rook c6, and everything is held. The queen has nowhere to do damage. Rook c4 check, a2, queen e3, rook block, rooks hold each other, and the rook and the pawn are coming down the board. Timur Rajabov has struck back. It is 1-1, and it's time for the Armageddon. Ladies and gentlemen, the Armageddon works like this. White gets 5 minutes, black gets 4 minutes, no bonus time, but if black makes a draw, they win the match. You sacrifice the result of the game for 1 full minute of time, okay? Now, the higher seed gets to choose what color they want. Wesley chose to play with the white pieces, okay? And we are covering Wesley's game from this point forward because it shows you Wesley got no advantage from the opening. In fact, the structure is symmetrical, and at this point, Wesley did not even have a time advantage. MVL had caught up, but Wesley tried to create some play. Watch what he does. He brings the pieces to the queen side because he has some pressure there. Starts trading and advancing, and at this point, he's up 30 seconds on the clock. MVL is struggling to defend this position, even with these trades, because you're so close to losing it. A4, knight e5 check, king slides back. a trade, f5. f4 attacks the knight. At this point, Wesley's got like 140 on the clock, and MVL's down to about a minute. 40 seconds down. Wesley's pushing for the win. Knight c6, a trade. King comes closer. Bishop trade. Bishop e7, a nice move from MVL. Trading on his terms, right? Knight c5, a5, get the pawn out of danger. King c4, king d6. Knight b3 slides back to pressure the pawn. Maybe king is coming. MVL right on time with the defense. g5, exclam. And you cannot just go hunting this pawn down because you have to deal with the repercussions of this side of the board falling apart. And Wesley So here plays the biggest mistake of his entire tournament. Knight d4, offering a trade, and it's just a draw. MVL shuts the door on this entire side of the board. You cannot push anymore, and it's just a draw. b3, h5, and this is, if you haven't watched my king and pawn endgame video, watch it. This is opposition. The black king prevents the white king from coming forward. If you play the move b4 here, take, I'm actually going to go win your pawns. And it's over. MVL defeats Wesley So, winning the match in Armageddon, and Wesley So has been eliminated from the Champions Chess Tour Airthings Masters, which brings us to our final game of the day. The game between Jan Nepomniachtchi, who also chose to play with the white pieces, versus Timur Rajabov, okay? Here is our position from the middle game. Jan has an extra bit of time, but he blunders. He plays bishop f4. And after take knight e6, it's a fork. And you can't play here because I go here and hit the queen. What is happening? Nepo is about to lose material. So what does Nepo do? He brings his pieces back, he regroups, and he starts the next phase of the game. He's got the dark squared bishop. So he's going to slide the bishop back to b2, move the knight somewhere, and keep it solid. Remember, black is down like 40 seconds. At all times. So Rajabov starts to have to, he's gonna have to make something happen. He loses his a5 pawn, but he plays knight g6 and h5. Rajabov's going for it. I mean, Rajabov, he's got to go for it. Otherwise, Nepo's gonna sit around with his extra time and he's gonna do nothing. We get bishop to b4, c5, and g4. He's coming in. Knight to d5, queen f7, trade, and knight centralized for Rajabov. Watch. Queen g7. Hello from the other side. Bishop e2, bishop f7, queen e3, queen g5. Rajabov inching closer on that side of the board, waiting for his moment to pounce. Bishop g6 and king g7. The rook is coming because he's got to make something happen, right? Rook d5, rook h8. And here Nepo simplifies into this position where he has a substantial lead on time and is just going to rely on the fact that there is no way for Rajabov to break through. I'm going to create a fortress. And Rajabov says, "You for real, man? b6? Okay, f3, king f7, d6, the pawn, hello, king e7, king f2, and this shows you that Timur Rajabov is a gangster. c4, and it's like this moment in the movie where you go, what? It's an unexpected plot twist. What? c4? What if I just, oh my, who's guarding this pawn? The king is covering the pawn here. Rajabov. 35 seconds on the clock. He's coming. His rook is about to do the damage. Oh no. Oh no. And that's it. And Rajabov has created the blockade. And all he has to do is draw the game, which means he can just repeat the moves, even with a little time disadvantage. And even whenever he wants, this is at least a draw for black. Black will never lose this game. And that's exactly what happens. They shuffled the pieces. And at this moment, the game ended by repetition of moves. A crazy, crazy finish, which means Timur Rajabov knocks out Jan Nepomniachtchi from the Champions Chess Tour, even though Nepo was up a game going into the final game of the Blitz. And this, my friends, will be the last clip that I show you. It was the reaction of Jan Nepomniachtchi to getting eliminated during the repetition of moves. Nepo not happy here. You can already see his desk a little bit shaking. He's like, you know, putting his foot up and down. And when the result comes in, oh, he storms off. Rajabov sitting there in absolute disbelief. And Nepo actually ended up making it back to his desk. There is a green screen, which is why he disappears, because obviously he moved beyond the confines that his computer could handle. Or his green screen could handle. But when Nepo sits back down, he still not happy. swearing, slams the desk, spills something, and yeah, a tragic ending. And actually, one crazy note that I will leave you off on as we move on to the semifinal in this event. You all probably remember, I mean, if you've made it this far, you remember the last tournament? Who were the semifinalists? Magnus, Hikaru, Wesley So, and Jan Nepomniachtchi. They were all eliminated today. That is your final crazy fact. We've raised $355,000 for charity, and that was incredible. It was an amazing stream that we did today. All 4 semifinalists of the last event were eliminated, and tomorrow we come back and we start the coverage of the semifinals. Thank you for watching.